Welcome to The Problem, a Lockwood & Co. podcast. I'm Caitlin.
I'm Alan.
I think I smooshed my name into like one syllable there, but whatever.
As I tried to copy you, I was really draw it out and then say my name fast.
Maybe I have a weird lingering cough situation. I don't know. Anyways, welcome. This week we're talking about part 2. Well, okay. This week we're doing something silly. We're talking about the second part of part 2, the last 2 chapters, chapters 6 and 7, and the first chapter of part 3, chapter 8.
Yeah.
Something because new. we wanted to make things difficult on you and ourselves.
It really, like, in reading part 3 again, I was like, this chapter doesn't even belong, if we're being honest. Like, part 3 is about something totally different, and it could have still been part of part 2, but I get why you just like, you get to the end of chapter 7 and you're like, oh my God, I must flip the page to the next part. And now you're in the next part. You might as well finish that part. So it's a good strategy, but it's like, we needed to talk about Holly. That's what it really is.
The thing about chapter 8, well, I mean, we're going to get there obviously, but it doesn't give you much of Holly's perspective. No. So I just hate her in that chapter.
I think that's the point.
Yeah, but we'll get there. We will start, of course, with chapter 6, in which Lockwood meets with Barnes and Kipps at a protest. Then he and Lucy deal with a ghost in Whitechapel. The chapter art this week is, of course, the ghost in the window that they do eventually deal with.
Yeah, it's very obviously that, too. It's like...
Yeah, this is not one of the times where we've had to squint and tilt the book backwards a little bit to get it into focus and be like, maybe.
The Whitechapel ghost. Yeah, but first we start at a DEPRAC Tea van, which is an amazing invention. I also
underlined that. Yes. Police tea. Yes. I hope it's the shape of like a paddy wagon. I hate myself for saying that word.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But I couldn't think of any other word. And I wish I need this in the show, but we're not getting any more show.
In DEPRAC yellow with like a food van has a service window out the side or something. Yeah. Is this, I don't think this is a thing, right? If like the police don't have this kind of situation. I could see like an enterprising in America. I could see like an enterprising food truck who's like a coffee donut thing pulling up at a crime scene and being like, hey, what's up, guys? But like, they don't have tea trucks, right? They don't have tea vans. I love it. It's amazing, but it's not.
I have to assume if like a good chunk of your, anyways, so they're all there because a protest is happening outside where all the streets are closed down because people want back in there so that they can die quicker.
Right.
And because it's obviously a protest led by people who are dumb and don't know what they're talking about, the police are there to protect them. I'm sure if it was a protest about something important that actually needs our attention, that would not be the case.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's in Trafalgar Square. So like, this is cool if in the show it would be cool to see this.
It would be so cool to see. Yeah. I don't know that they have the budget for that. I don't know what it would cost to shut down Trafalgar
Square for like a night or something. Yeah.
Yeah. But it would be cool if they got it. I feel the need to say I can generally say Trafalgar. I just, with the weird like frog in my throat situation, it was very difficult there.
Yeah. No, I got you. I love all the coats of all the different departments or agencies or whatever that are all over the place. And like, it's just awesome. And I think this like kind of is a contrast or a compliment to chapter 8 as well, where like literally every agency is here and Lockwood walks up on Barnes and is saying like, forget our invitation. And it feels a little bit like when Lucy walks into the house and Holly's there for the first time and is like, what's happening? What's going on here?
Right. We also get this A+ description of Barnes,
Oh my
which
God.
is like, I'll just read the whole thing. He wouldn't have won any prizes for grace or geniality, but he was shrewd and efficient and not noticeably corrupt.
Generous. She's
Yeah.
really starting to warm up to Barnes. Yeah. He had a weathered, lived in face and a graying mustache, the approximate size and length of a dead hamster. This is underlined by hundreds and hundreds of people in the Kindle edition.
Yep. Lucy
Brutal.
just being ruthless. And again, since we've been talking about the perspective on this, I do love the idea that like adult Lucy, who is friends with Kipps, is writing all this down.
Yeah. Is still like talking about him in this way.
Yeah, and I'm sure it would be a great joke between her and Lockwood.
She's like, look at what I put in my diary. Isn't this true? Yeah, but they're basically Barnes is kind of like managing the interagency task force here and using like Kipps as a lieutenant or advisor, it seems like. And he's just like trying to manage this huge, huge ghost outbreak. And Lockwood walks up and he's like, oh, now what? Like, I have to deal with you. Give me a break.
I'm on two sides about this whole scene. I get why it's here. I get why everyone is the way that they are. I don't know that I buy it, though, as anything other than the author wanting to introduce, like, this dynamic.
Uh-huh.
Just because Barnes has seen them do good things twice now, do big jobs that were dangerous, and they did a good job on them.
Yeah, they brought him home both times. I think it's really weird that but maybe it's kind of telling too, that he specifically is like, Lockwood, you have good talent. Carlisle, you have good talent, but you have George Cubbins. I mean, come on, get real. And like, which is ironic because George is going to be like the key to solving this entire
he's the one who solves this.
But like, it's so goofy to think that way, to be like, I just need people with psychic talents. That's the only value you have at all.
But also I get it. Like, he's just a bureaucrat,
Mm-hmm.
They don't want people who think. But then it is Lockwood and Co. who solves the whole thing. Like, and I do think just from the experiences they've had, Barnes would know that about them. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it does all make sense. He's just a bureaucrat doing his job, and the rules say Lockwood and Co. is bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels a little over the top. And I get that these books are a little over the top, so maybe that's a stupid complaint to have. But
No. I think you're right. The Barnes is like so dismissive here. It feels like he's just ignoring everything that happened, basically.
Yeah.
And maybe he's like under a lot of pressure. I could see that.
I'm sure he is.
Yeah. I do think that the important thing that this sets up for Lockwood's story, which is like not the main story of this book, but is important to him, is this, like, later Kipps will pull him aside and be like, listen, you have to, like, you're not for real, okay? Like, you're not a real agency. That's why you're not here. And you like have to stop playing around. And I think that Lockwood really does take that in. And a lot of this book for Lockwood's story is about accomplishing that whole, you're going to take us seriously, we're a real agency.
Right.
And by the end of the book, I don't think there's any way that he can get frozen out anymore. Like, after all the things they accomplish. Yeah. But I think it starts here in terms of like, Lockwood really cannot understand, because it's like you said, like, hey, we've done stuff. And he just can't understand why they're being frozen out. And Kipps is like, there's a political angle. It's not just merit. Like, you're just not part of the in group, and you got to like give up thinking that you can earn your place. Like, you just have to join an agency. Just get over your ego.
Yeah, I just had a thought, because what I thought was, why wouldn't Barnes just say that to him? And so many of my notes about Holly later are like, why wouldn't she just say it?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I see the parallel there.
Yeah.
Anyways, eventually Lucy and Lockwood do leave and head to their job.
Yeah, they go to Whitechapel, which is there's nothing happening there.
And it's pretty straightforward, the job.
Mm-hmm.
They go upstairs, ghost in the bathroom. Lockwood can see the ghost, very detailed. Lucy can't really. And so she listens to it, but doesn't see how scary it is. And I think that this is also a moment for Lockwood here being like, you know, like, what are you doing, Lucy? You can't just listen to it. You need to be paying attention.
Oh, yeah. This is really important, I think, because there's like a whole scene like where they go up the stairs and everything. And Lucy says, yet my heart sang in my breast to be standing beside Lockwood in that house, all as it should be in the world.
Yeah.
And so like to her, this is the perfect. This reminded me a lot of like the very first case in the first book, how it's just the two of them. And everything is not as it should be though in reality. Like,
yeah, it
feels that way to her, but like she wants to do a thing that Lockwood is like, we shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. And this, just the way that Stroud wrote this scene really does put it very clearly that this ghost is terrifying and getting closer to Lucy. And Lockwood is like, what the hell? And Lucy's just like, give me another minute. And it really is the start of their whole situation, this book.
Yeah, he can't handle this, especially everything we know about Jessica and the way she died.
Yeah. And Lucy even says that, but Lucy thinks that Lockwood will trust her.
Yeah.
And she's going to learn that that's just not the case yet.
It's like, I love how their trauma is like so nicely calibrated to go against each other. It's really, really good.
Yeah, it makes absolute sense.
Yeah, I love that she's like, don't tell me what it looks like. And he's like, here's exactly what it's like, a whole paragraph of like, here's how horrible it is. But eventually he fights it back a little bit to get it away from her. But she does listen to it enough to figure out that there's something in a cupboard or a bureau or something like that nearby. Yeah. And she like goes through it and pries up some hidden boards and finds like a will or a letter or something.
It was a confession, yeah.
And that seems to like dispel the ghost, kind of like we seen with Annabelle Ward and with the 7 ghosts of the bone glass.
Mirror. Yeah. Well, 2 things happen, because when Lockwood fights it off, I think the window breaks.
Mm-hmm.
And we see in the next chapter, he talks about, or Lucy says that Lockwood told the person who hired them to just get rid of that whole window frame, shatter, get rid of it, burn it, whatever. And so from that, it looks like the window is the source.
That's
and
what
the
he
letter,
thought,
yeah, and the letter is just something the ghost wanted out, like they wanted it discovered.
Yeah.
And Lucy thinks because of that, they don't actually need to bother with the window, but Lockwood is obviously not taking any chances.
Yeah.
So it's a shame we don't ever really get an answer.
Yeah, I think he even says to tear up the bureau or whatever. He's like, get rid of that too, just in case. Because they never like secured the source.
Yeah, they just dispel the ghost.
Yeah, because that's what I mean. Because it seems to me like they don't actually know what the source is, because once they found the confession, it just like, poof, it just like stopped.
Yeah. And Lucy feels confident the ghost would never come back.
Right.
But Lockwood is like, I don't know about that. Well, I don't even think she says that to Lockwood, at least not on page. So it's interesting.
It's very cool. I love how this kind of like escalates the difference between them. I'm sure it like freaks Lockwood out a lot.
A lot, yeah.
And to her, she's like, he accepted me. It's beautiful. We're closer than ever. And I feel like that's not true at all.
Oh, no. My last note on this was like, I feel like the two of them took different things away from this case.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Then we move on to chapter 7, where Lucy dispels a miserly ghost, visits her family in northern England, and returns home to a surprise.
Who doesn't love a surprise?
Surprises are great, especially when they're other women.
The chapter art here is the ghost sitting in the chair that Lucy has to go deal with.
Yeah, this is creepy. I love that illustration. It's really good.
Yeah, it's really good. So yeah, we go over kind of what I just said about the ending of that case.
Mm-hmm.
The confession to a murder, and Lucy feels that the ghost just wanted it known from guilty conscience.
Right.
Whatever. And then after that, she talks about how she's got one last job, and then she's going on vacation after a page of talking about how busy they are.
I know.
And I'm like, that seems like a weird choice. Why are you going on vacation right now?
Yeah, it seems like an England thing to me. It's like a workers' rights situation where it's like, oh, this was already scheduled in advance, so there's just no way that it can be like revoked or whatever. I'm sure that's not the case.
No, it does just sound like she wanted to go home and Lockwood said, sure.
Yeah, because he's in love with her.
And also it implies that she hasn't had like a week off in a year and a half, which is insane to me, but they're teenagers. They don't care.
Right.
Or they care less than I do. But it just seems like Stroud wrote himself into a bit of a corner there where all he's talked about is how busy they are. And then he's like, oh, but I need her to go away.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just, whatever. She just goes.
Yeah, she goes back to her family. It is a little, yeah, it's very convenient. But I think it does underline too that like when she goes there, well, I don't want to skip ahead too fast, but like when she goes there, she never calls it home, and she only ever calls Portland Row home.
Right.
So,
Yes.
Like, yeah, that's her home.
But first she does have the job at the project's household.
Yep.
And we do get that delightful exchange with her and Skull when she's walking up the stairs. And she has to go up like 5 flights of stairs and she is out of breath. And the Skull is just like, man, you're unfit. Just like, shut up, I'm in good shape. And like, what does the Skull know about being in good shape? But whatever.
Yeah, he just knows she feels bad about it. Yeah, there's that part. There's another hundreds of underlined, like people love it.
You're wheezing like an asthmatic sloth. It would help to lose a little weight, like that bit on your hips Lockwood's always going on about. I love the idea of Skull being the household gossip, but he's only got one person to gossip to. But he hears everything.
Could you imagine, this clearly isn't true, but could you imagine like George and Lockwood are talking and George is like, well, Lucy's really working out. And he's like, she's working out, but not on those hips. Like she could work out a little more.
I have a feeling that when Lockwood is talking about her hips, he's not doing it in that manner.
Right. Yeah. It's not criticism.
Yeah.
I doubt he's talking about her hips at all. But Skull knows where to, like, he knows her soft spots. So.
I don't know about that. I do like the idea that Skull never lies.
Oh, yeah?
Just tells exasperated truths.
Could you imagine I would feel for George. Like Lockwood just needs to talk about Lucy's, like, and the way she looks at George is like, please talk about anything else.
I do think this is George's life, though.
Yeah.
You know, Lockwood always talking about Lucy and Lucy always talking about Lockwood to him. And him just being like, there is a very easy solve here, for fuck's sake.
Right. Just please get together. Have you guys read any of those books that I gave you about advanced research practices or like how to take notes in the field? They're like, but Lucy's hips.
I bet for a minute George thought, oh, thank God, another girl in the house that Lucy can talk to. And then was almost as disappointed as Lucy was.
Disaster.
Anyways, Lucy goes to the job, talks to the family. They make her some tea, which is always good. And then she goes to see the ghost in their living room with constant judgments about the house from Skull, of course, who knows all about money and owning homes.
Right. I do. Yeah. I love how the kind of poverty of the situation is shown and not told in a lot of ways through the descriptions, you know, the cramped spaces everywhere, but also like the way that the living room is kind of arranged to be the most comfortable for this dead patriarch.
Yeah.
And
even the fact that they mentioned that he was tight with his money.
Yeah.
You know, like if you had your own money, you wouldn't bring it up.
Right. Yeah.
It wouldn't be forefront of your mind.
Yep. They're not helping each other. It's like,
yeah.
Because that's how everyone treats them. Yep. So there's this worn out chair in the middle of the room. The ghost kind of appears and Lucy knows right away that like the right thing, the quote unquote right thing to do, you know, the Fitz manual way of doing things would be, you know, set up a perimeter of iron and lavender and all this stuff. And she even thinks in her head, and I really like this, that like that's what Lockwood would do. So she's like identifying this quote unquote right thing with Lockwood, and then the wrong thing, the thing that feels right to her on the inside, is the opposite of Lockwood. And so she's really internalized this difference between them, even while she like,
yep.
But this guy like appears, she doesn't set up the perimeter, So she's like trying to connect with the ghost again, trying to like listen to it and hear anything the way that she did with the other Whitechapel ghost. And she doesn't really get any words as feedback. She just gets sounds that have to do with the chair and stuff.
I do really like this bit though, when she just gets it out of the ghost. Everything's fine. Like it all works out well for her.
Oh yeah, this is a huge turning point, I think.
Yeah. She listens, she gets what the ghost wants, which is just for his family to find the money in the chair before they get rid of the chair.
Right. Yeah, so the chair is like stuffed with rolled up money. This is like a classic don't trust the banks, bury your money in the backyard kind of a thing. Yeah, and that way the family can get the money, which is like even though he was like this acerbic, person, unloving, miserly person, the whole point of it was that really he did care about saving up a nest egg for his family, I guess. Or
maybe once he was dead, he realized he couldn't take it with him.
That's true. Maybe that's it.
Right? It's the ghost that wants to share it with them, not alive.
That's funny. But it comes out good, yeah, because then they get the money and the ghost is basically dispelled again.
Yes, but the thing here, after that, they probably do get rid of the chair and the cane, one of which was probably the source. Mm-hmm, so you could argue that it's not, like, that we don't know if it was that the ghost was finally settled or if it was that they got rid of the source.
That's true, yeah. But I think Lucy does feel like, she
feels that way, but we don't know.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, I like how she, she's kind of like elaborating on the whole like type 2s have a purpose. That's like one of the first things we ever find out in the series. And then what her entire new method is like find out the purpose and fulfill it, make the ghost calm down quite a bit. But yeah, we don't know if it actually like evacuates the ghost's presence from the world. That's true. They need to test it. What she needs is George with her. I feel like George would be way more supportive than Lockwood.
Exactly. But like everything happens, and so
yeah.
But I feel like if the Holly thing had never happened, then that's what the outcome would have been. Like very much like in the show when they experiment with the ring. A grumpy Lockwood saying this is a bad idea, and an excited George being like, "Yes, experiment."
That's true.
I think that was some good foreshadowing there, honestly. But we never see it.
Skull feels sure that she wouldn't figure it out, but then she does. So she gets the satisfaction of getting it over on Skull, too.
Although he's obviously like, ugh, that was just a lucky guess.
Yeah.
You're not as smart as me.
Who can literally see the answers. So, it is true, though, that there was no explicit like exchange of information. She just has to kind of feel her way through, but I really like that.
Yep.
The previous ghost was like that too, where she had to tear apart the bureau or whatever.
So then Lucy goes back to visit the family.
Right. They don't like anything about her new life.
Yeah, and she doesn't really like anything about their lives. So it goes swimmingly, and then Lucy leaves early.
Yeah, she doesn't feel at home. Like I said, she never refers to that place as home, and she keeps, when she says home, she keeps meaning Portland, bro.
And then on her journey back, we get her again thinking about how well that job went and how she wants to, do it again when the opportunity presents itself, I guess. And she's just so excited.
Mm-hmm.
She's just like, it worked. And so, like, not all ghosts, obviously, but some ghosts we can do this with and blah, blah, and we can, experiment with it and see what I can do and see what, if we can find this easier, safer way to deal with some of these ghosts. And safer from her perspective. And and then she makes a stop on the way back to pick up some donuts or whatever, sweet buns, I don't know, for the boys. Gets back to the house, hears them downstairs, puts all the buns on their second best plate because she can't find their best plate. Weird.
Yeah.
And then goes downstairs and there's literally a new girl sitting in her chair at her desk. And the boys are like fawning over her.
Yep.
This is maddening. I don't know if it's just because we're in Lucy's point of view, but at least so far, I'm 100% on Lucy's side here. Like, I too would be like, what the fuck is happening?
It is so well written to
Yeah.
give you that feeling, to be like a gut punch. And it is, I texted you this when I reread the book like earlier this year. I was like, this moment, I didn't realize it the first time I went through. I was like, it is so caught my husband cheating coded. Like,
Yeah.
the whole scenario of like coming home early, you know, a day early, and like the laughing and hanging close to her and all this stuff, and their reaction too of like,
Yep. Oh yeah, they know.
Yeah, they know.
They absolutely know. They're like, oh, Lucy's here early. We were gonna do this differently. She wasn't supposed to see this.
We were gonna tell her, and then Holly would show up for her work day, and oh my God, what's going on?
Yeah, and like the having Holly sitting at Lucy's desk, literally as though she's been replaced.
Yep.
Oh, it's so bad.
Yeah, the whole fantasy that Lucy had is exactly what's happening to Holly right there. Like down to the plate and the desserts
and
on the plate.
Yep. And it's terrible. Like
it's so bad.
Yeah. Anyways, part 3, the bloody footprints, because we got to keep talking about Holly here. Chapter 8. Lucy gets to know Holly, and they become best friends instantly. I had not read that before.
The rest of the book is the adventures of Lucy and Holly as they dump the boys and start their own agency.
Yeah. The chapter art here is objectively Esmeralda, but within Lucy's head, I'm pretty sure it's Holly.
Yeah. Which happens at the end of the chapter, yeah.
Yeah. And then Lucy's immediately like, what the hell happened? I was only away 3 days. Oh, George took Holly out, so this is not yelling this with Holly right there.
Yeah, he's like, let me help you find where the bus is.
6 doors down the street.
Runs away.
I assume everybody was doing that thing where they're like George and Holly are just sitting there silently looking at Lockwood and then looking at Lucy and then looking at Lockwood. Yeah. And then and then Holly was like, well, I'm going to go. And George was like, me too. But I live here.
It's as awkward as the English people can handle. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, they have not an argument, I would say. Maybe it is.
Lockwood does the classic cheating husband thing, I think, of like being like, well, really, this is your idea. I'm not responsible for this. Like, remember when you said before that we should have an assistant? That's all I did. I did what you wanted. This is for you, really. It's terrible. I think Lucy is appropriately outraged by all of this, and her reactions are not out of character or like unreasonable.
No, because here she's not mad at Holly. She's mad at Lockwood here. Yeah. And even at the end, even at the end of this night, at the end of their argument here, she's like, well, I'll just give her a chance, you know? She admits that this was a bad start, but she's not like determined to hate her.
Yeah.
So I feel like things could have gone better, but they don't.
There is a thing here about like part of the reason why she gets hired so quickly, according to Lockwood, is that she was let go from Rotwell's all of a sudden, and she just like was such a perfect fit in all of these ways that he wanted to get her before someone else did, and it just seemed like the thing to do. And originally, when Stroud wrote this book and created Holly as a character, she was a spy for Rotwell. And so she was like calibrated by them to be like, go find out what's going on at Lockwood, blah, blah, blah. But he dropped that whole plot and got rid of it. But he didn't change anything about her introduction or any of the foreshadowing for that. And so like it all feels very sus on purpose in like a cool way, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Although I'm glad he dropped it, because it would really suck if the women hating on women thing was proven to be an accurate response that you should have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am glad he dropped it. And ultimately, I do like where Lucy and Holly's story goes in book 4 and 5.
Yeah, I think Holly is a great character. I would hate for her to be a spy. That would really undermine her character.
Although it would be kind of cool if she was like a spy, but turned not spy, decided
like a double agent situation, because she just likes them. Yeah.
Yeah, and also with all the shit that we find out about Rotwell in book 4.
Yeah.
And then like retroactively book 3.
Yeah, it's all there. You could tell, his world is all arranged.
I mean, I think we know who. I think there's enough in book 3 that we know that it is Rotwell who are responsible for all the shit going down.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, okay, cool.
So he tells her, like, well, this is the reason why all this stuff happened. It just seems like,
and you know what?
Very weird to her.
Lucy is very kind and doesn't say, and you couldn't phone me?
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't give me a call? You have the phone number? And then she points out, like, did you test her with the skull and everything? And at first I was like, isn't the skull with you? But I guess she didn't take the skull on vacation, which I guess makes sense. But
that's funny. I didn't think that she took skull, but it makes sense.
I didn't either, but I think of them as like such a duo, you know? Like where Lucy goes, skull goes. But yeah. And just all these things. And then eventually Lockwood is like, well, she's cleaned up. Isn't that nice about how clean the place is? And, that's the thing. When Lucy first walked in and noticed that the house was clean, her first thought was that the boys had cleaned up for her.
Yeah.
And that sucks too.
That really stung. Like every time I reread that, I was like, oh God. And it's just the classic. Yeah, it's the classic thing of like, it's the cheating thing. Of like, wow, he's really getting in shape for me. He really cares. He's changed the way he dressed. Wow, it's just, things are really better than ever. And it's like, oh, because he has a girlfriend. You know, whatever. I think his hiring Holly, who was a personal assistant to people high up in Rotwell's, is a direct result of that talk with Kipps.
100%. Yep.
Yeah. Of like, he got that in his head and he's like, Kipps is right about like, I need to be more like the big agencies. This is an insider who can give me that inside track. I need to change Lockwood and Co.'s status. And this is the way to do it.
And even if she wasn't an insider, she's still like, having an assistant does sound like make them sound more important, and having someone there to keep the house clean so that when people come over, it's not a disaster.
Yeah.
Like all of that is the same thing, basically.
Also, I think it's objectively good, the changes that she brings to you can't argue that like things get better with Holly.
The one thing I would argue about is that she will clean Lucy's room. It's even here. She mentioned like, she's not been in my bedroom too. And that I think is a boundary issue. I do not think she should go into people's bedrooms to clean without their permission.
Oh yeah, I agree.
That's terrible.
Or she should be given the proper, like they say that she puts on a maid's uniform when she first started and like cleans the place up. I feel like she should have one of those like radioactive suits for George's room.
I have to assume she doesn't go into George's room. Like, I can't imagine like who I know Holly to be. I suspect she opened that door and then closed that door, you know?
Do you think George is worse than Lucy?
100%. Not, but George doesn't care. Mm-hmm. You know, like if you think badly about George, he does not care. Lucy cares what people think.
Oh, that's so interesting. I think you're right. Yeah, I think that's true.
That's why she doesn't want Holly going upstairs to clean her room for her, because then Holly will know that she is quote unquote better than Lucy.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
She objectively is better. Yeah. I did note down here that like, in fact, the first thing she did on Monday was roll up her sleeves, put on an apron, and do the whole housemaid bit. And I was like, is this accidentally slutty? I don't think this is a good. She rolls up her sleeves is the joke that I'm making. But
no, it's only men.
That's a boy thing. I know.
Yeah.
But also putting on a maid's outfit is like accidentally slutty. I don't think there's some things about the way that Holly is written, especially here in the beginning, that I don't like and feel icky to me. And this is one of them. I understand like you're going to clean up, so you put on an apron for things like that. But like, I don't know. I don't like the idea of her getting dressed up in a maid outfit on her first day.
I don't think that is. I think that's just a man writing a woman misunderstanding what a woman would do to clean the house.
Uh-huh.
You know, like I don't think he's trying to say anything with the maid outfit. I don't think he's even saying she put on. I'm not even sure if two people who weren't a little deep into anime culture would even notice this. You know what I'm saying?
I think like in the English version of it, the British version, it says that she puts on a pinny, and to me that's like more than an apron. And that's why this always bothers me, I guess, because it does feel like you could see that as like a minor manipulation on an 18-year-old girl's part to two teenage boys to be like, on my first day, I'm going to get a little dressed up and like clean the shit out of their house and just really impress them. I don't know. I just don't like it.
I don't read it that way. But maybe this is like in the same way that I mentioned the sleeve thing being the sluttiest thing a man can do. And you're like, what? Maybe I just don't understand the male point of view here.
I don't know. It would not be to me. I would be like, please don't do that. That is degrading to yourself and others. So it's not slutty to me. I don't know.
Okay. I don't think Stroud meant it that way at all.
Yeah.
I think he just meant she came over and she got really serious about cleaning.
Which is great.
That's how
they
I
do
read
need
it.
that. But
yes. I don't think anything was being said there about, not in a way, like sometimes I do think Stroud is clumsy about writing women.
yeah.
So in that way, yes, absolutely.
That's why I said accidentally slutty.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't intended to be this way, but I was like, I'd never like this.
Yeah, but again, I don't know. I have an immediate, like whenever somebody says maid outfit, I have immediate like, ugh. But again, I think that's just from being really deep into anime. Like, I don't know that it is, like, I understand that there's like sexy maid, like Halloween costumes and stuff, but it's not the same. It's not the same if you're not into I don't want to say Japanese culture because I don't know anything about Japanese culture, right? Just the anime part of it and the maid cafes and that.
Yeah, it's all gross. I don't like it.
Genuinely, I don't know that this would even be a blip on a radar for someone who doesn't know about all that. And Stroud has never given me the impression that he grew up watching 90s anime.
I think French maid stuff is a thing in England because they're like obsession with the French. But
fighting words.
And that's where it goes into Japan. It's all French made stuff.
Right.
But anyway, I didn't mean to dwell on it for too long. It's just always snagged me when I read this part. I do think
book 3 is the book where we should really concentrate on how Stroud is writing women.
Yeah.
In a more clumsier way than he usually does. So it's interesting to bring up, definitely.
I've got another one later too.
I'd love to hear listeners' point of view on whether or not that gave you the ick. Or because I assume not everyone who listens to us watches as much anime as we do. And has seen the things we have seen.
They do say a little bit later, here's Lucy says this, according to Lockwood, who seemed to know all of her statistics, she was 18, but in raw competence and efficiency, she seemed a good deal older. And when I think about how we focused earlier on Lockwood's trauma around Jessica, I feel like
he has an older sister back.
He has an older sister who can give him advice and guide him. And like,
I've never thought of it that way, but that is interesting. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like it because of trauma. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's good writing. It's good
writing. Yeah. I don't think it's like a conscious thing. He'd be like, this will replace my sister. I just think
absolutely.
Psychologically, like that's happening. It's also weird that she's the most junior person in the organization, but the oldest.
That must be strange, but also it feels like not in their world strange. No, not too strange
for their organization. It's just weird.
Yeah.
You know, that feels very Lockwood and Co. to me. To be like, well, if you're the oldest person, then you're the lowest person.
The first like real interaction that we see with Holly here is, I think it's the next morning or a morning, I don't know, where they come into the office, living room, library, I don't know. And Holly has made them all tea perfectly to how they like their tea.
Oh, it's the kitchen. It's a kitchen table.
Oh, it is in the kitchen?
Yeah.
Well, Lucy was saying how she usually comes into the kitchen early and then leaves so that she's not there for their like domestic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it is just a job for her, which is an interesting point. So I thought maybe they had left the room and found the tea elsewhere, but whatever. It doesn't matter. They're in our room. And I don't know why, but Lucy was really describing exactly how the tea was made perfectly for each of them. So that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then they talk about how they've gotten a lot of calls and for like 5 different jobs. And they're like, ugh, there goes our weekend. And then Holly's like, well, I declined a bunch of them because we don't need to do that.
It's so
and
good.
All 3 of them are like, what?
We can say no.
said no to work.
It's so good. I think for a small business, I think that this is usually like a huge revelation of like, you can turn down work. You can charge more. You can charge what your time is worth now that you like have a little bit of traction.
Yeah.
Like that's a huge thing to realize and to do. And she just knows the business side of it better than Lockwood, I think.
This is definitely part of why Holly is, or why I immediately think about Holly. Not like, and it's not 100% fair of me because we just talked, or you just said, oh, this was good, but it does kind of feel like making Lockwood and Co. more like the other agencies, when their whole thing has always been about being different from the other agencies.
Well, and you said last time too that they take the jobs for like the poorer people.
Yeah.
And they take care of those people when nobody else will. And she's turning down those people. So I thought that too.
To be fair, they do explain how all the ones that she turned down can take care of the problems themselves very easily, and that she will send them instructions on what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not like leaving people to be hurt or anything like that. But it still just feels different than what Lockwood and Co. would do. You know?
Yep. I think that's right. And I think you're supposed to feel that way a little bit.
Yeah.
It's also, it's funny, like we talk about Ghostbusters every once in a while. It's funny to me that when they hire the fourth person in Ghostbusters, it's also a black guy.
Yes.
And it's because they're so busy that they hire the fourth guy.
Yep. I wonder if that was like a subconscious thing in Stroud's mind, because he's about our age, a little older maybe, or a little, I don't know, he's around our age. And so it would be interesting if, like, I'm sure he grew up watching Ghostbusters too, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. It always felt like a shout out to me. I was like, oh, it's like Winston. Yeah. Not at all though, because Winston is like really grungy.
Oh, the thing that I wanted to mention that I couldn't think of earlier, just for a little bit more of Lucy's headspace, I almost called her Holly there. Fuck Stroud for that.
Wow.
Seriously. It's going to be a mess from here to the end of book 5, folks. There's gosh darn names. Anyways, with Lockwood immediately calling her by her first name, when we saw in book 1 about how he took a while to call Lucy instead of Carlisle or Miss Carlisle. And Lockwood says, well, that's because of you making him feel a little less formal about everything. And it is kind of a compliment, but Lucy does not take it that way.
Oh, she hates it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. Even there, saying Lucy, I was not 100% sure I was saying the right name. I'm
always
already,
in danger of saying Ruby. And so I'm so vigilant around that.
Yeah. That was mean, but that one we can't blame Stroud for.
I noticed that too. I really like that. And it always frames, this is probably not fair to Lucy. It always frames the way that I interpret Lucy's behavior towards Holly as like thinking back to book 1 and how unwelcome George made her feel.
Yeah.
And how welcoming Lockwood was and how she treats Holly. And like, she never, well, it's not true. She does try to give Holly a chance, but just the way that their personalities conflict, she just abandons that very fast. Very fast,
yeah. Yeah, I'm not saying in all of this that Lucy is 100% innocent, but she is, to me at least, the more sympathetic character between the two of them.
Yeah. Well, I think that's very, very true the first time that I read it, for sure. And having read it a couple more times and thinking about things from Holly's point of view, I really appreciate how true her character is built, if that makes sense. Like, it makes sense to me that she's the way that she is and she reacts to Lucy how she does.
Sure, there are just a couple things. I'll bring them up as we get to them because they're not in these chapters. That makes me just like, why? Like, Holly is doing that to exacerbate the problem.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's no other reason to do that.
Yeah.
100%. You know? And we get this sort of introduction to how things are going to be between them, where Lucy says, I was very polite to her, and just as she was very polite to me. We were good at being polite to each other. I'm paraphrasing here. And then we get this conversation between the two of them where Holly is like, sorry to bother you. I know you're working hard. And Lucy's just sitting there reading. And
which is
through,
passive
like,
aggressive.
Yeah. And through this whole passive aggressive thing, what Holly is saying is, could you please move your laundry?
Mm-hmm.
But she doesn't just say it. And I hate, why wouldn't she just say it? Like, hey, we've got some people coming to install a shelf. Could you please move your laundry? Why wouldn't she just say that?
Or like tell her a day before, or
even if she'd forgot, like, I don't care about that. But Lucy is doing nothing. So why wouldn't she just say, hey, some people are coming to install a shelf. Your laundry's in the way. Could you please move it? Done. Not this, just mentioning the laundry and then Lucy saying, yeah, I'll do it today. And then mentioning, it again. And Lucy saying, yeah, I'll do it. Just hold on. And then eventually coming around to the point of some people are coming to install a shelf.
mm-hmm.
Like, lead with that. I don't know. And especially, like, if Holly were younger than Lucy, I might see where she didn't feel comfortable.
Telling her what to do.
Yeah, but again, but she's older. She used to work for a much more prestigious agency. I don't understand this bit. Bit just feels antagonistic to me. It doesn't feel like personality wise like she would have a problem just saying, hey, could you please do this?
Yeah, I think it is deliberately. So it's passive aggressive, and it's also, I think, deliberately provocative on Holly's part. I agree. So the way that I read Holly and the way that she treats Lucy is that we kind of skipped over this, but at the end of the previous chapter, Lockwood says, this is Lucy Carlisle. She's the perfect agent we've been telling you about. Which feels like very compensatory on Lockwood's part when he's like caught with his hand in the cookie jar, so to speak.
Yeah, that to me just felt like he was saying that for Lucy's sake.
100%. But I do think that they told Holly a bunch of stuff, and I'm sure that Lockwood, because he's so smitten and Lucy really is amazing, that he like was like, you won't even believe how incredible she is.
Right.
And then when she meets her, so I think for all of Holly's life, for one thing, she doesn't have much talent, like capital T talent.
Right.
But she has enough to get in the agency, and she's not a good field agent. So I'm sure she's self-conscious about that. And to make it in Rotwell, especially, you have to be this kind of agent that we've been talking about since book one, who like follows the Fitz manual, who follows rules. And that's what Holly's really good at, is following the rules and anticipating the rules, anticipating the needs of the people around her, and like thinking that way. That's a trauma response. That's not like she's that way because she was traumatized. And I think that when she sees Lucy's success in Lockwood and Co., it's triggering to her because she's a slob from Holly's perspective,
right, yes.
And she gets rewarded. And so she resents Lucy because she can act in a way that Holly could never act and be rewarded.
You know what? I'm glad you're here to point this out to me, because I forgot who the real villain here was, which is Lockwood.
Yeah. 100%.
So thank you for bringing me back down to that. But this conversation does, like if I were Lucy in that conversation, I too would be like, why did this happen?
Yeah.
I guess I just, what is the word? I can put myself, I guess empathize is what I'm looking for, but I don't know, that doesn't feel right. I can empathize more with Lucy than Holly.
I totally identify with Lucy. On the first reading, I'm like, what is this bitch on about? Like, this is not cool. Like, come into my house and tell me, like, just tell me, like you said, just tell me to move the laundry. But I think she wants her to feel bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I do want to say, I like Holly. Eventually.
That's all I mean when I say, like, I think that her character is, like, really well built as a fictional character. Like, it's very believable.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that we are given her, you're not supposed to like her. I think you're supposed to be on Lucy's side. And so I just appreciate how all of that is done. And I don't think that, like, this is just women fighting because women be fighting. It does feel like it's two trauma responses that trigger each other to me.
Right. Yeah, that's fair.
But let's
again keep our eyes on the real villain, Lockwood.
Lockwood. We did skip over the other thing that icks me out
Mm?
in the writing when it comes to Holly. I almost said Ruby. Lucy is describing Holly at one point and how perfect she is, and by contrast, how imperfect Lucy is. Says her black hair was immaculate. There was never any grave grit under the manicured nails of her small, pretty hands. She wore clothes well. Her skin looked as smooth and delectable as coffee-colored marble. And just describing...
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Anybody's skin is delectable, but especially to me, the black person's skin is delectable. It's just like...
And coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's just clumsy writing.
Yeah, it's just always bothered me.
I don't think that's Lucy. I think
No.
No.
It's always thrown me out and I feel bad whenever I read it.
Honestly, I think I skipped it. You know?
Yeah.
I think my brain was just like, zoop. Because I have no memory of even reading that, because that's pretty bad.
There is this part that makes me crazy that is on purpose, and I think it's really good, that talks about like when they have those interactions that are passive aggressive, like we were just talking about, that it says, all the while Lockwood and George would be somewhere near at hand, smiling genially like two pipe smoking dads watching their offspring playing happily in the garden. And it's just like Lockwood is the fucking enemy.
Yep. Like, no, this is not working out. Nobody's happy, Lockwood. Nobody's happy.
Do you think he sees that?
Not right now.
No.
I think he gets it pretty quickly, but not right now. And of course, more to your point of the skull being Lucy's inner desires and wants, all he does is make terrible faces at Holly.
Yeah, he tries to get noticed. Why, if everything is like we're on a first name basis, we're all a family here, why is Skull a secret? Is this Lucy's policy or Lockwood's? I can't tell.
I don't think we ever know, but I would think Lockwood's not that far gone that he would spill the beans about Lucy.
Mm-hmm. Especially
to so new an employee. Like, everyone is deep in their own head in this book, but I don't think he's that stupid.
Yeah, I agree.
Because spilling the beans about Skull does mean spilling the beans about Lucy, too. Like, you can't do one without the other.
That's true. You can't say, this is our type 3 Skull. Or you're like, how do you know it's a type 3?
Well, someone can hear him talk. It just wouldn't work, right? Yeah. And I do think that even though Lockwood is very much wanting to impress Holly, I don't think he's that far into it.
That does make it worse, though, right? Because then it makes Lucy seem crazy to Holly. Because sometimes she's just screaming at this thing.
Right, but she could tell Holly.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a weird... I think you're right, that they can't afford to tell her, but it is like at odds with the rest of the way that they treat Holly.
From what you said earlier, though, like if she had been a spy... That is probably why Stroud decided not to tell her.
Yeah.
Like from a writing perspective, he couldn't have Holly know, at least not right away, because he. Oh,
that'd be the whole game.
Yeah, that'd be the whole thing.
Over. Yeah.
So that's what it is.
Yeah.
That she used to be a spy and he could never have that information. But it is funny how it goes until the very end of the book too, that they don't tell her.
Yeah.
Until they're on the job.
The worst.
It's pretty good. Like, it's hilarious. In fact, even then, I don't think they tell her. I think she's just like, I know.
She figures it out.
Like, I've figured it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I assume she must hear Lucy talking to herself all the time in her own room or somewhere in the house and just be like, what the fuck?
That bitch is crazy.
Wrong with these children?
Right. Yeah, I do like that. Yeah, like you said, symbolically, Skull is Lucy's internal monologue. I like that Lucy explains to Skull, Lucy Monroe is one of the team and you have to treat her with respect. Like, she's just saying all the things she's not doing. And Skull is like, she wants me gone. She doesn't want me here. And Lucy says to him, well, don't we all want you gone? Because the way that she treats Skull. But I think that is her own fear, that Holly wants her gone, and then everyone else is going to want her gone.
Thinking about Skull as her inner voice and Lucy saying, don't we all to it? That's hard. I get it, and it sucks.
Lighten up, Lucy. You earned your spot. It's okay, honey.
Anyways, so then we do have that last conversation between Lucy and Holly about a new client coming the next morning. And
so
about,
passive aggressive again.
Yeah, it's just so passive aggressive, and eventually Lucy is practicing her rapier with Esmeralda, and eventually she just stabs Esmeralda through the head. And Holly says, "Oh, glad I'm not a ghost," and then leaves.
I think she's like so satisfied that she got under Lucy's skin.
100%.
Yeah. She's like, oh, I'm glad that's not me. Bye-bye. And I like, we don't talk about the audiobook very much, but I really love how the narrator plays everything between Lucy and Holly. It's very passive aggressive all the time. They sound like way over the top in how they talk to each other.
Yeah. This is the book that the narrator switches, right?
Yeah, there's a permanent switch. I should look up her name.
I do like the second narrator better.
She's really good.
Not that the first one wasn't good. She was very good. I just like the second one better.
If I remember right, the first book has one narrator, the second book has another narrator, and the third one, it's 3, 4, and 5 all have the same one. It's Emily Bevan.
I thought 1 and 2 were the same.
Let me look it up.
I could be wrong.
So it's Miranda Raisin for the first one and Kate Lyons for the second one.
Oh.
And then, or Katie Lyons, I'm sorry. And then Emily Bevan for the rest of the series.
Interesting.
Who is a native North Englander. That's weird. Native to like the north of England. And so her accent is very authentic to Lucy's voice. She's great. Everything. She's great at all the accents, and I think she does a really good Lockwood too. But yeah, her and Holly, I mean, it's amazing how over the top she does it. Where it's not, I'm not saying that in a bad way. Like, it's just very syrupy sweet the way that she plays Holly, and you just feel the rage that Lucy feels being talked to that way. It's so patronizing.
Maybe, yeah, I do think the Holly thing, it's like she was designed to hit all of my in particular buttons. And that's why I do find it difficult, at least in book 3, or at least for like the beginning of book 3, to see things from her point of view. So it's a good thing you're here, because
I did not feel this way the first time I read book 3.
This is like my second or third time reading it, and I'm still like, I will strangle this girl.
I had to really slow down and think about, like, who would write a character like, this is terrible? And then I had to be like, okay, but what is it within the world of the story? How would Holly's version of this book look? And then when I started to think about that, I was like, well, she's a rule follower.
The one thing I can see very clearly this time is Lockwood's version of this book.
Oh,
I don't think I saw that at all the first time I read it. Like, I got where he was coming from with all of his decisions, or I got where they came from. But this time, everything is just like the book is crafted from Lockwood's point of view in a way. You know what I mean? Like, I can just see this to this to this. Like, it just makes so much sense.
He's in more of a fantasy than Lucy is, I think. Like, he's really deluded in being like, I've really solved the problem. Like, everything is peaches and cream. I don't think he's in touch with reality at all for this whole book.
Yeah. But it all makes sense to me. I don't know.
Oh no, it's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that I don't think anybody sees anything from anybody else's perspective.
No,
which is great.
Very teeny. I think George is, not right now, but a little later on, I think George is sort of sitting there like, what is happening in this house?
For real. Yeah, his disappointment at the end of the book is huge.
Yeah. I do not think there was a single joke in these chapters. Oh, the way that she describes Kips and Barnes.
That's kind of what I thought.
I forgot. So much has happened since then, except nothing has really, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That I completely forgot.
The dead hamster thing is very funny to me.
The dead hamster. I like the plague rats on the caviar.
That's so good.
That is a particular, Mm-hmm.
There's nothing more punk rock than inviting your girlfriend over to your wife's house to sit in your wife's chair when she's away on vacation. That's not punk rock.
The only thing that could be punk rock in this chapter, I think, is Lucy doing the job with the old man in the chair.
100%. Yeah. That's what I
and deciding not to do it safely.
It's badass. And she pulls it off. It is sad to see her come out of her pyromanic phase.
Yeah, that's true.
She's like,
let's just burn it all.
She's like, I didn't even have to use a flare. And I'm like, oh, she's over it. Oh, well.
Yeah. Oh, man. I just remembered Lucy on the Wraith job. I love Pyro Lucy. I guess she's grown out of it, though.
Now she's in her hating girls phase. Oh, no, she was always here.
She was always kind of... I do wonder how this would have gone if Holly had been a guy.
Yeah. Would Lockwood have hired him? I don't think he would.
I can't imagine within this world that Stroud has created that there are many men who are quote-unquote assistants.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That would... I don't even in our world today, I don't know, outside of a school caretaker, I don't think I know of a man who is in a cleaning position.
Yeah. They're coded gay usually if it's a personal assistant type of thing.
Right, yes. So I don't think the world with the problem has had more gender equality than us. Certainly not.
Well, it would have made the whole rolling up the sleeves and putting on a penny thing slutty.
Then it would have been slutty. Yeah, absolutely.
I brought it back.
I think that's it for these chapters. If anybody out there wants to yell at me for how much I hate Holly, I completely understand. And I will say I do, like Lucy, I warm up to her. But right now, it's just not the thing. Anyways, you can follow the show on Twitter at Lockwood Podcast. And I did 2 different things last time. Do I want to? I mean, you can follow me on Twitter. Yeah, that's fine. At Inferior Caitlin.
And you can still send us emails, contact@hologroundmedia.com, or you can go to the webpage, hologroundmedia.com, and just scroll to the bottom, and there's a form you can fill out if you prefer that.
And remember, laws are threats made by the dominant socioeconomic ethnic group in a given nation. It's just a promise of violence that's enacted, and the police are basically an occupying army.
Wow.
That was the joke I was going to make when Lucy says, I'm breaking the law. And so I thought I'd bring it in here.
Nice.
That is obviously a quote by Brennan Lee Mulligan.
Yeah.